There is a silent fear many people carry as they grow older. What will happen when I become old? Will I be alone? Will I still matter? Will life lose meaning? And behind these questions is a deeper fear that most people never express openly. The fear of becoming irrelevant. The fear of losing control. The fear of being forgotten. But what if old age is not what we fear? What if it is what we misunderstand? Because most suffering in later life does not come from age itself. It comes from expectations that no longer match reality. In this video, we will uncover 4 life-changing truths about old age that can completely transform the way you see life, aging, and peace. Not to create fear, but to create clarity. Because when truth is understood deeply, fear slowly disappears. Truth 1. Old age is not the end, it is a shift in priorities. One of the greatest misunderstandings about life is the belief that old age is a decline. In reality, it is not an ending. It is a transformation of focus. When people are young, life is driven by ambition. Build a career, earn success, gain recognition, create stability. Life feels like a race forward. But as years pass, something naturally changes. The need to prove slowly weakens. The desire for external validation reduces. The hunger for achievement begins to soften, and in its place, a deeper question emerges. What truly matters now? This shift is not a loss. It is wisdom unfolding. However, many people resist this transition. They try to hold on to the same urgency of youth, the same competition, the same pressure to achieve more. And because they are fighting a natural stage of life, inner conflict begins. Psychologically, suffering increases when there is resistance to change. A river does not suffer because it flows downstream, but a human mind suffers when it refuses to accept the natural flow of life. Old age brings a gentle invitation: slow down, simplify, and reflect. But when this invitation is ignored, stress increases unnecessarily. Many elderly individuals continue living as if they are still in a race. But the race they are running no longer exists. And this creates exhaustion, not fulfillment. There is a quiet beauty in this stage of life, but only when priorities shift correctly. Instead of chasing achievement, the focus slowly turns toward peace. Instead of competition, it turns toward connection. Instead of accumulation, it turns toward meaning. This does not mean giving up on life. It means redefining life. A person who understands this shift begins experiencing freedom. They no longer measure their worth by productivity. They no longer compare their journey with others. They no longer feel pressured to become someone they are not. Because they begin to realize something powerful. Life was never meant to remain in one constant mode. Just as seasons change in nature, human life also changes in stages. Spring brings growth. Summer brings intensity. Autumn brings reflection. Winter brings stillness. Old age is not winter of loss. It is a season of wisdom, but only when accepted, not resisted. And once this truth is understood deeply, something beautiful happens inside. The mind relaxes, the heart softens, and life begins to feel less like a burden and more like understanding. Truth 2. Peace depends on what you release, not what you gain. As life moves forward, especially in old age, many people make one silent mistake. They continue trying to add peace to their life, when peace actually comes from removing what disturbs it. They think, if I get more respect, I will be peaceful. If people treat me better, I will be calm. If life becomes easier, I will be happy. But peace does not work like addition. Peace is subtraction. It is not about collecting more. It is about carrying less. And this becomes especially true later in life. Many elderly individuals carry emotional weight that no longer serves them. Old arguments still alive in memory. Unspoken anger toward family members. Disappointment from past expectations. regret about decisions they cannot change, comparison with others who seem more successful or more loved, and slowly, the mind becomes a storage of emotional burden. Psychologically, unresolved emotions do not disappear with age. They become heavier when they are repeatedly revisited in thought. This is why some people feel older, not because of their body, but because of their emotional weight. There is a quiet suffering that comes from holding on too tightly, holding on to pride that no longer serves peace, holding on to expectations that no longer match reality, holding on to stories that keep the mind restless. And the more tightly a person holds on, the less space there is for peace. A peaceful life after 70 is not created by adding more comfort. It is created by releasing unnecessary mental noise. Letting go is not forgetting the past. It is refusing to let the past dominate the present. There is a deep emotional intelligence in this understanding, because not everything deserves continued emotional investment. Some arguments do not need resolution anymore. Some disappointments do not need repetition. Some memories do not need constant revisiting. The mind often believes it is solving problems by thinking about them repeatedly, but in reality, it is only deepening emotional pain. Letting go is the moment you say, "This no longer deserves my present energy," and that decision changes everything internally. A lighter mind begins to emerge. You begin noticing small joys again. A quiet morning feels peaceful. A simple conversation feels meaningful. Even ordinary moments begin feeling softer, because mental space has been created. And where there is space, peace naturally enters. There is also another truth often discovered later in life. Forgiveness is not for the other person. It is for your own peace. Many people believe forgiving means approving what happened. But forgiveness is simply releasing emotional captivity. It is choosing not to carry bitterness into every new day. Bitterness keeps the past alive. Forgiveness allows the present to breathe. And as emotional weight reduces, life feels less heavy. There is also a subtle freedom in accepting that not everything will be perfect. Not every relationship will be ideal. Not every expectation will be met. Not every story will end the way it was imagined. But peace does not require perfection. It requires acceptance. When acceptance grows, the need to control everything slowly fades. And in that space, something beautiful appears. Emotional ease. A state where the mind is no longer constantly fighting life. Because the truth becomes clear. You cannot gain peace by holding everything. You gain peace by releasing what no longer belongs to your inner world. Truth 3. Loneliness is not physical, it is emotional disconnection. One of the most misunderstood experiences in old age is loneliness. People often assume loneliness means being physically alone, but the deeper truth is different. You can be surrounded by family and still feel lonely. You can live in a full house and still feel emotionally empty. Because loneliness is not about presence of people. It is about absence of emotional connection. As life changes after 70, many relationships naturally transform. Children become busy with their own lives. Friends may move away or pass on. Social circles become smaller. And this external change often creates an internal misunderstanding. I am alone. But being alone is not the real problem. Feeling disconnected is. There is a difference between solitude and emotional isolation. Solitude can be peaceful. Emotional isolation feels heavy. Psychologically, the human mind needs 3 things to feel emotionally alive: meaning, connection, and engagement. When any one of these is missing for a long time, emptiness begins to grow. Many elderly individuals silently suffer, not because they lack people, but because they lack meaningful emotional exchange. Short conversations replace deep ones. Routine interactions replace heartfelt connection. Presence replaces engagement. And slowly, the heart begins to feel unseen. But here is a deeper truth. And loneliness often increases when life loses purpose. When days have no meaning, even company feels empty. When the mind has no engagement, even conversations feel shallow. This is why some people feel lonely, even in crowded rooms. The mind is not searching for noise. It is searching for meaning. And meaning comes from feeling valued, involved, and connected in some way. This is why simple activities become powerful in later life. Talking to someone with intention, sharing memories, listening deeply, engaging in small, meaningful routines, even helping others in small ways. These actions restore emotional connection, because connection is not measured in quantity of people, but in quality of presence. There is also another important psychological truth. When a person stops expressing themselves, loneliness increases. Unspoken thoughts become emotional weight. Unshared feelings become internal pressure. Silence becomes heaviness instead of peace. This is why gentle communication becomes essential, not for attention, but for emotional release. Even simple expressions like gratitude, memories, or feelings can create emotional relief. The heart feels lighter when it is heard, even in small ways. There is also something powerful about reconnecting with oneself. Many people search outward for connection, but forget the importance of internal connection. When you enjoy your own thoughts, your own presence, your own reflection, loneliness reduces its grip, because the mind is no longer dependent only on external stimulation for emotional stability. A peaceful relationship with oneself becomes the foundation for peace with others. At this stage of life, it is important to understand you do not need many people to feel connected. You need meaningful connection, even in small amounts. A short, genuine conversation can be more healing than hours of empty interaction. A memory shared sincerely can feel more fulfilling than constant company without depth. Loneliness softens when life is filled with meaning again. And meaning can come from the simplest moments: a conversation, a walk, a prayer, a reflection, a shared smile. Because at its core, the human heart does not ask for constant presence. It asks to feel understood, even briefly. Truth for wisdom is learning to live light, not live more. As people grow older, especially after 70, life begins to naturally slow down. But the mind does not always slow down with it. It continues carrying old habits of pressure, worry, comparison, and emotional weight. And this is where suffering quietly increases. Because many people still believe that living well means living more. More thinking, more worrying, more planning, more remembering, more holding on. But wisdom slowly reveals a different truth. A peaceful life is not about more, it is about lighter thoughts, lighter expectations, lighter emotional baggage, lighter reactions to life. At this stage, true wisdom is not measured by knowledge alone, but by how lightly a person carries life. Many elderly individuals continue carrying mental weight that no longer serves them. Old worries replayed again and again, regret about past decisions, fear about uncertain future, overthinking about family situations, attachment to outcomes they cannot control. And slowly, the mind becomes tired, even without physical effort. Psychologically, the brain becomes burdened not by events, but by repetition of thoughts. The same worries repeated again and again create emotional heaviness. But wisdom introduces a shift. Instead of thinking more, you begin thinking less, but more clearly. Instead of reacting quickly, you begin responding slowly. Instead of holding everything, you begin choosing what truly matters. This creates mental space, and mental space is where peace lives. There is a deep beauty in simplicity that often becomes visible only later in life. A simple routine, a calm morning, a quiet evening, a meaningful conversation, a moment of reflection. These small things become more valuable than anything complex. Because the mind no longer needs chaos to feel alive. It begins appreciating calmness. Wisdom is also the ability to stop carrying unnecessary emotional stories. Not every memory needs revisiting. Not every opinion needs analysis. Not every situation needs mental replay. Sometimes, peace comes from allowing things to be as they are. There is also a powerful shift that happens with wisdom. You stop trying to control life and start understanding life. Control creates tension. Understanding creates peace. Many people suffer because they are still trying to manage outcomes that are no longer in their hands. But life becomes lighter when acceptance replaces control. At this stage, even relationships begin to feel different. Expectations reduce. Understanding increases. Judgment softens. And because of this, emotional pressure decreases. Wisdom also teaches that silence is not emptiness. Silence becomes comfort. Solitude becomes strength. Stillness becomes clarity. A quiet mind is not an empty mind. It is a peaceful mind. One of the greatest realizations in later life is this: you do not need to fill every moment. You only need to be present in it. Whether it is a simple morning tea, a walk in the sunlight, or sitting quietly without distraction, presence itself becomes enough. Because when the mind stops running everywhere, it finally arrives at peace. Living light does not mean ignoring responsibilities. It means not overloading the mind with unnecessary emotional weight. It means choosing peace over pressure, acceptance over resistance, simplicity over complexity. And slowly, life begins to feel softer. Not because life changed, but because the way of carrying life changed. That is the essence of wisdom in old age. Closing reflection. Old age is not a chapter of loss. It is a chapter of understanding. It slowly teaches what truly matters and what never mattered as much as we thought. Peace does not come from holding on tighter. It comes from learning to hold life gently. The mind becomes lighter when pride is softened, when expectations are released, when loneliness is understood differently, and when life is accepted as it is unfolding. At the end of life, people do not remember how much they controlled, they remember how peacefully they lived. Not how much they achieved, but how lightly they carried themselves. Because true wisdom is simple. It is the ability to sit with life without resistance, to accept change without fear, to love without excessive expectation, and to let go without regret. And when the mind reaches that state, even ordinary moments begin to feel like peace itself.